So, when patients arrive at the dental office, we should try to greet them just as soon as they walk into the office. And depending on if you recognize the person or not, you'll say one of two things. If it's a not recognized person, you'll say, "Thanks for coming in. How may I help you?" If you do recognize the person, you'll say, "Hi, Frank," in this example. "It's nice to see you. Have a seat, and we'll be with you in just a few minutes." So, obviously, we're understanding that Frank has an appointment and we know that he's arriving. Sometimes patients come in and we don't really know what their status is. So, if a patient arrives without a scheduled appointment, it's important to understand the protocol around each scenario. A lot of times there will be computer or communication malfunctions, and sometimes a patient will get a text message saying that they have an appointment when in reality it was for a different day. And so we just need to be cognizant of that and be understanding that it could be our fault, not the patient's fault. Now, how often does this happen? Very, very infrequently, but we've seen some fronts kind of have some missteps during this interaction with the patient that has left the patient upset. So, the first scenario here is a new patient walk-in. Now, if you look at the Open and Affordable Dental webpage, website, we do accept walk-ins. So if you take a look here, it does say right here, walk-ins welcome. Now, sometimes what will happen is there will be a patient that calls and maybe gets to the answering service, and the answering service cannot log into the patient management system or Eaglesoft. And so if the answering service knows that that office is open, they'll direct the patient to just go in as a walk-in. So walk-ins are absolutely welcome at Open and Affordable, and we will accommodate them as quickly as possible. Most times, a new patient walk-in is either for an emergency or they're trying to get scheduled for a cleaning. So be aware of that. And we're going to try to see them just as soon as possible, depending on if they're seeing the hygienist or the doctor. Like I mentioned, occasionally there will be a wrong appointment date or time, either because of the communication malfunction or because the patient just made a mistake. If that's the case, if you can have the patient show you the weave message that shows, or the communication message that shows that it's on today, even though the appointment is on a different day, just take a screenshot of that and have them send it to corporate@openandaffordable.com, and we will reach out to Weave to see what the issue is. If a patient comes in and they say that they have an appointment for today, but when we try to find the appointment, we can't find it. And how are we going to find appointments? When you are on Eaglesoft, you can find patients by either clicking on this appointment and choosing the locate button, or if you unclick off of all appointments and choose the locate button, it will select, it will allow you to select any patient. Now, if you are not able to locate their appointment, it is very, very important that we do not tell the patient that you don't see them on the schedule. Patients get super upset when you tell them that you don't see them on the schedule, even though they're there for an appointment. So, what you need to do is when you're locating their appointment, obviously you're going to ask for the spelling of their last name, and then what you'll do is you can ask them, and again, what were you here for? And then schedule the appointment as an unspecified appointment and alert the clinical staff that there's a patient that showed up. Put notes in there as to what the patient wants to get done. If it is a filling or if it's an emergency, just alert the clinical staff about that, and then the clinical staff will handle the patient. and there's that locate button that we talked about. For patients that arrive late, it's an indication that they're being considerate when they arrive on time. But if they do arrive late, we usually can accommodate them in the clinic. Okay. If they arrive more than 15 minutes late, communicate with the clinical staff. Hey, we have a patient. He's in and he's 15 minutes late. What do you want to do? If the clinical staff has substituted another patient for the late patient's appointment, we might ask the patient to just wait around until we can see them. Um, the other thing too is that we usually will see them, and providers really do want to see patients. But if it's a larger appointment and the clinic is running super busy, the clinical staff might come out or they might instruct the front to request that the patient be rescheduled. So just talk with the clinical staff, but be aware that in most instances, we will see the patient. For no-shows, what we'll do is we will change the appointment type from the original appointment type to a no-show appointment type, and then we will drag that no-show into the notes column underneath the uh, call to reschedule block. So, for example, if we are going into this particular patient and they were here for a prophy, what we'll do is we'll click on their appointment. We will designate that this was a recall or a prophy adult appointment. And we will change this to a no-show. And then we will drag this under the call to reschedule. Now, if a patient had, so I'll just, as an example here, drag that over. So let's change this back. And well, let's say that the patient called in 1 hour before the appointment and said, "Hey, I'm moving out of town. I don't need to be contacted again." You would move this no-show above the call to reschedule. Now, occasionally what will happen on slower offices is that these no-shows that basically were people that didn't show up, the doctor will call them or instruct the front to call them and say, "Hey, Frank, sorry that we weren't able to see you last Tuesday. We wanted to call you and see if there's a better time for you to be seen." And so it helps us to reactivate these patients. So when the patient arrives and it's a new patient, we're going to give them the new patient forms. And the new patient forms are found right on the website under Patients, New Patient Forms. And usually your office will have a lot of new patient forms already printed, and these new patient forms will also potentially be clipped to a clipboard. These new patient forms are found in all of the different languages. They're written in English. Uh, the title is written in English here, but when you open it, the new patient form is in Vietnamese. And this is the Vietnamese version so that patients, if they come to this site, can just print it out. These forms are able to be filled out via PDF. So if patients call in and request new patient forms or part of the new patient inbound phone call, you can direct them to this site so that they can fill the new patient form online before they even come into the office. Remember that the new patient forms are 3 pages. Many times patients are forgetting to fill out these, or excuse me, it's 2 pages, and they are forgetting to sign and date the second page. So make sure that this is very complete. All of these fields are required. So the patient needs to make sure that they fill all of them out. And then when they hand that to you, after they've filled out the forms, you will ensure that they've filled out the entire form in completeness. As part of the new patient forms, you're going to see that there is a medical history here. Okay, this medical history corresponds to the medical history found within Eaglesoft. So after the new patient has given you their new patient forms, you're going to transfer that information to the edit patient field and making sure that you don't forget the email, you don't forget any additional phone numbers that they've given you. And then you're going to fill out all of that information. And again, you're going to click on the patient, you're going to click on edit patient, and you're going to complete this portion. Then you're going to fill out the medical history. So you'll click on the patient. I'll go ahead and change this patient back to, let's say that we're doing new patient prophy. And then you will fill out their medical history. And you'll see that these questions correspond to the questions on the new patient form. So you'll click on yes, no, and if yes, you'll put in the corresponding information. Click here, and then you will click on save, and then that information is found in Eaglesoft. You will also scan that same medical form or the new patient forms into SmartDoc by clicking on SmartDoc, and then you will click on the acquire and you will scan those documents into their SmartDoc. Ideally, that should be done before the routing sheet is taken to the clinical staff and the patient is presented to clinic. Occasionally, if there's information when a recall patient or an existing patient comes in, and you usually will ask them, has there been any change in telephone number or insurance or contact information? If there has been any new information that has changed, the best thing to do is to give them a new patient form and have them refill that out, and we'll make note of that in a new medical history, or we'll update the edit patient screen and we'll scan in that new patient form. Routing sheets are extremely important for allowing the entire office to communicate on where the patient is along the patient flow. So we usually are going to print up routing sheets for the following day at the end of the night. And to be able to do that is fairly easy. So what you're going to do is you're going to click on your on schedule, and you're not clicking on any particular patient, and you will go ahead and click on the routing sheet. Okay. And then what we'll do is we will click on the we will click on print patients with appointments, okay, and we'll choose the dates, okay. In this instance, we're going to go from 122 to 122, or select the appropriate date. Then we'll click on Get Matching Patients, and you'll see that these test patients showed up. And then we will click on Print, and it will print up all of the patients sorted by chair. Now, if we're just printing up, if a new patient came in and we're adding the patient in, we can print up a routing sheet for just that patient. So we will click on the patient, we will click on the routing sheet icon up there, or the routing sheet button. We will click on print patients with appointment. Oops. So what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and click here. we'll go ahead and click on routing sheets. It will queue up that patient. We don't need to click on print patients with appointments. And then we'll click on print and we'll print up, and it'll only print up that one routing sheet. So routing sheets, again, super important in order to make sure that everyone knows where the patient is. So when all of the edit patient information is filled out, the medical history and the patient's insurance is verified, then we will present the patient to the clinic. So you will take the routing sheet and you will go to the clinical staff, and if it's a patient that's scheduled with the hygienist, you'll go ahead and go to the hygienist and say, Frank is here for their, and then you'll tell them the appointment type. So if it's an SRP or a scaling and root planing, or if it is just a recall appointment, you'll say the appointment type. And then you'll deliver the routing sheet into the wall pocket that's designated for the hygienist, and you'll put that routing sheet furthest towards you. Because if there's multiple routing sheets that are stacking up, you're going to put the routing sheet the furthest back, the routing sheet furthest towards you is the next patient that will be pulled or taken by the hygienist, okay? So again, the most recent routing sheet goes to the farthest back. The patient that needs to be seen the soonest is the routing sheet furthest towards you. So if the patient is scheduled with the doctor, you're going to notify the dental assistant. You're not going to be notifying the doctor. So you're going to tell the assistant, hey, assistant, Frank is here for this appointment type. So sometimes there's going to be assistants that are in the break room, and sometimes you're going to see assistants that are with the doctor. You're going to usually notify the non-patient facing assistants of the patient's arrival. If all of the assistants are patient facing, then you're going to notify all of the assistants of the patient's arrival, because then the assistants will figure out which one of them will take the next patients. In the event that the patient is an add-on to the schedule or arrived early for their scheduled appointment, you're going to tell the patient or tell the assistant, hey, the patient is here for their appointment type, and then ask the assistant if there's going to be a wait, and then communicate that wait to the patient. So let's say that they came in, the clinic is completely busy, and you go to the assistant and you say, hey, Frank is here for his emergency appointment, and the assistant will probably tell you, hey, there's going to be about a 15-minute wait. You add the routing sheet to the wall pocket, and then you go out to the waiting room and say, hey, Frank, I talked with the clinic. There's going to be about a 15-minute wait. Are you okay with that? It's very important to communicate the condition of the clinic or the waiting time of the clinic to the patient, so they're just not waiting there without knowing how long it's going to be until they're seen. If a patient has come here with an early arrival, the same thing. It might be an instance where we can bring them in right away, but it might be an instance where, Frank, I'm sorry, we're running on schedule here, and so I know that you're here at 1:45, but they probably won't be able to see you until 2. So again, it's important to get the information from the assistants or from the doctor on where they sit as far as the clinic schedule goes. Usually the assistants probably know more than the doctor, because the doctor is doing a procedure, and so the assistants might be able to give you more information on that.